The nation now has a new president after yesterday's inauguration. Joseph Robinette Biden was sworn in as the country's 46th president yesterday.
At 78 years old, he is the oldest person to ever take the oath of office. CBS's Deborah Alfarone is on Capitol Hill with the new president's challenge to the American people.
So help me God.
President Joe Biden called for unity in his inaugural address.
Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire.
Declaring democracy has prevailed, the 46th president denounced the divisions that led to the storming of the U.S. Capitol just 2 weeks earlier.
We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue.
President Trump broke from tradition and did not attend the ceremony, while his Vice President Mike Pence joined former Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama in welcoming the new administration.
Being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it.
President Biden wasted no time getting right to work, signing a number of executive orders from the Oval Office.
Help change the course of the COVID crisis. We're going to combat climate change in a way that we haven't done so far, and advance racial equity and support other underserved communities.
The new president reversed some of his predecessor's actions, stopping construction of the border wall, ending the so-called Muslim travel ban, and rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement.
Kamala Devi Harris.
Kamala Harris became the first woman, the first black person, and first person of South Asian descent to become vice president.
Congratulations.
Harris later swore in 3 new senators, giving Democrats full control of Congress. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
And President Biden did say that President Trump left him a letter, as is tradition. He did not go into the details about that letter, otherwise just saying it was very generous.
And 3 former presidents, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton, came together yesterday as part of the Celebrating America event. The unique group is speaking about how people can have different views.
They also talked about how a peaceful transition of power speaks to the institutional integrity of the United States. Former President Obama recalled his inauguration day and the kindness he says he received from former President Bush.
It was a reminder that we can have fierce disagreements and yet recognize each other's common humanity, and that as Americans, we have more in common than what separates us.
I think if Americans would love their neighbor like they would like to be loved themselves, a lot of the division in our society would end.
And former President Clinton says it is a new beginning and that everyone needs to reach out to their friends and their neighbors. President Trump chose not to attend the inauguration.
And yesterday, President Joe Biden started his inauguration on the steps of the nation's capital. But the journey to get there started 12 years ago when he first punched his ticket to the White House here at our own state capitol. That's where then Senator Barack Obama in August of 2008 made Delaware Senator Joe Biden as his running mate. The Illinois Capitol building is also where Abraham Lincoln gave his House divided speech, a call for unity. A public relations expert says he saw a connection, a common theme between the speeches from then and now.
It's unfortunate that we had a president in 1858 that warned people about having a divided nation and stood for the abolition of slavery. And here we are over 150 years later, and we're still dealing with some of those same issues. It just shows you that if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it.
The steps of our old state capitol looking similar to the perimeter of our nation's capital. The entire state house on lockdown yesterday as National Guard troops continued their armed presence around the premises. But there have been no incidents or specific threats all week in Springfield.
The time is now 5:05. History in the making as Vice President Kamala Harris becomes the first woman in American history sworn into that role. Vice President Harris also took the oath of office yesterday morning. She's also breaking barriers by being the first woman of color to hold the office. The vice president was born to a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. Harris also attended a historically black college, Howard University, that's in D.C., raised by a single mother, and also has a blended family family with her husband. Members of the Bloomington Normal NAACP believe that the vice president gives little girls and boys of all races someone to look up to.
The fact that she has risen to this powerful role sends the message that every child can achieve greatness, and we have to be willing to lean in and to accept and embrace differences.
And representatives with the NAACP saying that while this is a momentous occasion, their fight for combating systemic racism is only beginning.
And as vice president, Joe Biden left a mark on the city of Peoria. In 2010, he spoke at the Partners of Peace luncheon for the Center for Prevention of Abuse. There he talked about his work against domestic violence. After his speech, he visited the Spotted Cow for some ice cream. Frank Abnor, the former owner of the restaurant, says he remembers Biden's kindness and was shocked his business was picked for the visit. Abnor tells us it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience and says he'll never forget the visit.
It isn't every day that you get the Vice President of the United States to come into your facility, so we were honored, shocked, excited.
There was also an ice cream flavor in the VP's honor named Chip Off the Old Biden. It was a chocolate chip ice cream, which Abnor says is one of Biden's favorite flavors.